Question 2. Are all beliefs essentially the same? There are thousands of recognized religions in the world today. Do they all fundamentally teach the same thing? Can they all be true? Each of the various belief systems can be put into one of 4 categories. Monotheistic beliefs teach that there is only one God. Polytheism claims there are multiple gods. Pantheism says that there is no personal God, but rather that the universe is controlled by some kind of impersonal higher power. Finally, atheism says that there is no supernatural realm and no God. But the question remains, do they all essentially believe the same thing? Do all roads eventually lead to God? Let's take a closer look at the question. As is the case with so many questions, there are some presuppositions at play. It assumes that if you were to get on a plane and travel the world, you would certainly find diverse languages, cultures, and people. But ultimately, one would discover that people around the globe inherently agree when it comes to religion. To simplify things, let's look at some individual components that make up a belief system or religion. Just on the matter of origin, some religions say that humankind is eternal, while others teach that we were created a finite amount of time ago. These views are opposites, so only one can be true. In the same way, some religions say that God is an impersonal, mysterious force that runs the universe, while others say that God is a personal being who directly communicates with us. These views are also opposites, so only one can be true. When it comes to the question of purpose, either our existence is purely accidental, or there's a grand purpose beyond the here and now. Only one can be true. Regarding our 4th and final question, the afterlife, some say we simply cease to exist, while others say there are hundreds of thousands of years in store, where we exist much like we do right now. Between these opposing views, only one can be true. Each of these questions can be answered in at least 2 different ways, each of which are exact opposites of one another. So does everybody more or less line up on the issues at hand? A recent study shows that of approximately 8 billion people in the world, 32% consider themselves Christian, 24% Muslim, 10% are unaffiliated, 14% Hindu, 7% Buddhist, 3% atheist, and 10% don't fit into any of the aforementioned categories. For the sake of time, let's take a brief look at the beliefs from the top 5 most commonly practiced religions. For more information on each religion, see the links provided at the end of the episode. First up, atheism. This worldview claims that our universe came from purely natural causes. Given this naturalistic perception of the universe, the atheist says there is no supernatural God or higher power. Therefore, it is up to each individual to subjectively decide for themselves how they ought to live their life. There is no afterlife, according to the atheist. We simply cease to exist. Next, let's examine the teachings of Buddhism. Buddhism doesn't have much to say about the origin of the universe or life itself. You are essentially God. Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, vowed not to return to society until he had found the answer to the question of suffering. He assumed from the outset that he should look to himself for the answers. Lo and behold, he emerged with a new religion. He determined the purpose of life is to escape the desires of the world. He even left his wife and his newborn child to do so. There is no heaven in Buddhism. Rather, achieving nirvana is extinguishing the desires of the flesh and escaping the cycle of reincarnation. You essentially cease to exist. Hinduism can be hard to define. In 2018, the Indian Supreme Court made an attempt to put some parameters on it. One of the justices said, quote, "It does not claim any one prophet. It does not worship any one god. It does not subscribe to any one dogma. It does not believe in any one philosophic concept. It does not follow any one set of religious rites or performances. In fact, it does not appear to satisfy the narrow traditional feature of any religion or creed." End quote. With that in mind, here is how Hinduism has historically answered the 4 essential questions. When it comes to origin, our souls are thought to be eternal. Most practicing Hindus only worship a select few gods, such as Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. However, they recognize there could be an endless number of gods in existence. Hindus and Buddhists share a similar view of the afterlife. The ultimate goal, called moksha, is somewhere between ultimate self-awareness and non-existence. Islam is a monotheistic faith that has its roots in what we know today as Christianity. Islam teaches that our universe was created by an intelligent, eternal being. There is only one God. However, it teaches that God would never enter into the world that he created. The word Islam literally means submission to the will of God. Therefore, the purpose of the Muslim life is to submit to God to a degree where he might one day accept our good deeds. There is no assurance of salvation. We must work hard enough to gain God's acceptance. The afterlife of Islam isn't too far off from what many consider to be the ideal human life. Those who have earned God's favor will ultimately be rewarded with many pleasures from this life, such as servants, the best food one can imagine, plenty of wine, and multiple partners. Finally, let's take a look at Christianity. This worldview teaches that there is an intelligent, eternal being who created our universe from nothing. A common theme throughout the Bible is that there is only one God. Unlike in Islam, the ancient records of both the Old and the New Testament record God being inherently loving in nature. He's willing to enter into history among the people he's created. Jesus made it clear to anybody that wants to follow him, their utmost priority has to be knowing and loving God. The afterlife is just that. It's not a bunch of exhausted people bowing down to some egotistic dictator. Literally being with God solves any problem imaginable. By offering to make things right on our behalf, he gives us a chance to have a purpose that will never, ever get old. Consider this one illustration. You walk up to a child at a train station, and he says, "I don't know how to get home." There are technically a couple of different ways to respond to this lost child. You can tell him, "Take any train." While it makes his decision easier for the next couple seconds, he's not going to end up at home. You can tell him to take the train that he likes the most. This too makes the decision easier for the time being, but it doesn't get him any closer to where he really wants to be. Maybe you can suggest that he convinces the conductor to take him to his house. But then again, the conductor knows what's best. He's probably not going to change course just because the child selfishly says, "Do things my way." The final option, and the most reasonable, loving option, is to find the correct train. There's only one way to get where he needs to be. Telling him otherwise might seem nice and fun in the moment, but the consequences are devastating when you can only pick one. In the same way, we need to be cautious in how we approach these various worldviews. The inherent contradictions could not be more clear. Atheism says do what you feel is best. Buddhism says you can save yourself. Hinduism says you can pick any way to be saved. Islam says you can be good enough to impress God. And lastly, Christianity says that only God can save. So, it's not closed-minded or bigoted to say there is only one truth. The most loving thing we can do is to really study the evidence for ourselves and then show people the right way home.